Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1915, written by Nor15. 2 girls, 1 ride, and names that hide. About 2.5 years ago, when I, 19 female, was 17, I had a very strange thing happen to me. I believe I might have jumped timelines, with my life in an alternate universe or something. I had just gotten off the bus, and I was walking towards a place where I was supposed to meet my friend. I'd been walking for about 5 to 10 minutes, when suddenly 2 girls of my age rode past me on their bike. They looked back to me, and they seemed kind of familiar, but I couldn't place where I knew them from. I actually wasn't sure if I actually knew them, but I looked away. And then they suddenly stopped and called my name. I looked up, and they asked where I needed to go and if I needed a ride. I told them the place and sat on the back of the bike of one of the girls. They drove me there, which took like 3 minutes. They asked me how I was, and I asked them as well. I heard them call each other by their name while talking as well. We arrived at the place and they dropped me off and said bye. One of the girls was called Haley, and the other was something like Alexa or Hannah, something with an A. I can't remember it anymore, but I did remember the name for a few days. I remember being really kind of in shock about what just happened. I asked my friend if he knew those girls and told them their names and what they looked like, but he was sure he'd never met them either. I looked through my entire contact list, but couldn't find either of them. I'm usually really good with names and faces, and it never happens to me that I actually don't recognize someone. So it's crazy to me that even now, 2.5 years later, I still haven't been able to figure out who those girls were. The part that freaked me out the most was they actually knew my name. Case file 1915. 2 girls, 1 ride, and names that hide. I'm not entirely sure why, but my gut says, these were your kids from the future. The kids you haven't had yet, but will. But then, were you simply seeing an image, a projection of what they will be? You saw them, but that was just information. They weren't really there. Or did you twist space-time to the extent that they really were there, and you really did ride home, but then you reappeared in your timeline when you reach your destination? I guess it doesn't really matter which one. And I could be way off, it's just what my gut is telling me. These children were related to you. Case file number 1916, written by Professional Ear 5923. Blue to Green, or Just a Dream. This would have happened in 2018. Honestly, isn't it odd that so many people have stories from this exact time frame? I noticed that year seems to be prominent. Anyways, I had this car, a blue 2001 Volkswagen Jetta TDI. It's the car I learned how to drive on. It honestly didn't get much use by this time period. Kind of just sat there. But I knew that car like the back of my hand. Even though I didn't drive it often anymore, my friends and I would often use it as sort of a hangout spot, as I lived in a small trailer at the time, with my parents and 2 siblings. There wasn't much privacy in that place. This wasn't once or twice, we'd hang out in the car all the time. Pretty much nightly, as I was always with friends getting up to some sort of trouble at this point in my life. We'd hung out in the car as recently as the night before, in fact, and I remember this quite well. That's why it was bizarre the next morning when, upon glancing outside the window of my then home, I noticed that the car was not blue, but green. I took the shortest, most innocuous glance at the thing, and had to do a double take. In that moment, I experienced the most surreal feeling, something akin to déjà vu, but with increased intensity followed by this wave of fear, adrenaline almost, like I'd just witnessed something dire or terrifying. I can't really explain my reaction now. My stomach dropped just for a moment. I called all of my friends over to look at the car, and they'd remarked how they could have sworn it was blue as well. One of them without me even prompting them to do so. I hadn't yet told them what was wrong when I said we were going to go check on my car. This is something that has bothered not just me, but everyone else I used to hang out with in that car for a long time now. We even did some digging, and unfortunately I found that in all previous photos of the vehicle, it never appeared to be blue. It was always green. There's one discrepancy though, and it's the title. The title says the car is blue. This entire experience was disturbing in a very odd way, from the emotions it evoked to, well, the questions I still have now, years later, about how something like this even happens. Case notes found 1916, blue to green, or just a dream. Okay, so there's a lot of anomalies in this one, and they don't all mesh together, namely with the title of the car being blue, but the pictures and most people remembering it as green. It's almost like you're in a new universe, but the title card came with you from the originating universe. Maybe you had it on you when you were ported over, but in that case it wouldn't be quantum immortality. It would be a shifting of your corporeal being, not just your soul, but your physical body, which would mean that in your originating universe you actually just disappeared, which is another spin on things, but I can't see any other reason why the title card for the car would mention blue, unless it's just a clerical error in this new universe and it was just quantum immortality and it's just your soul that's over here. I don't know. I mean, I guess it could just be an error. The only other thing I can think of is, of course, DOP. So the card disappeared and was replaced by an incorrect version of it, where the title card says blue because it's still the same universe. Maybe that one. But it's such a large object to have disappear. There have been large objects before, but this one is way up there. Imagine it disappeared while you were driving it. You're just driving along the highway going 60, assuming the position of driving, and there's no car, so you just fall to the ground. I don't think that's ever happened, so if there's an observer watching the object, it can't de-render. That's my guess. It's like hard baked into the code of the universe. Case file number 1917, written by NibblesMcGiblet. A mother's plea and a daughter's fall. My daughter is 21 now. This happened when she was maybe 3 years old. I was in the kitchen, which was wide open to the living room. Husband was sitting on the couch watching TV, half asleep. Daughter toddling around. I opened the oven door to check on food and turned to get a pot holder out of the nearby drawer. When I turned back, my daughter was almost to me and suddenly fell forward with her hands out. I shrieked, "Oh God, help!" to my husband. In that instant, images flashed through my mind of her landing on it, burning herself horrifically, us going to the emergency room, her being there for a very, very long time, months. She grew older at various stages, covered in horrible burn scars and scar tissue, limiting the movement in her hands and on her face. Her going through plastic surgery after plastic surgery. Our life becomes all about hospitals and surgeries. I felt I lived those lifetimes, all in an instant. Then suddenly, I snapped back into the present, and my husband was looking at me saying, "What?" All irritated. And my daughter was on her hands and knees at least 3 feet back from the oven, where she definitely wasn't seconds prior. I said, "She fell and almost landed right on the oven door." And he said, "She's nowhere near there," and just took a sip of his beer. I've never forgotten this. It was a defining moment in my parenting life, despite her being my youngest and me living through a lot. I told her about this when she was an adult, and she was shocked and she didn't remember it happening. And I said, "Well, you wouldn't, because somehow you just fell down, and toddlers do that a lot." And she has told me a few times since how shaken she felt hearing it, and how it haunts her now, because she feels like the timeline was somehow real and happened, but didn't. I've never been so thankful for a glitch in my life. I still think about it from time to time, and my heart jumps into my throat. I know it happened. That was a real life. There's zero doubt. It is what it is. Case notes are file 1917. A mother's plea and a daughter's fall. I too believe that those memories you had were real in the sense that they were a possible future that perhaps did already happen and already play out. And this is just a different replay of the scenario. So you can imagine that, you load up an RPG like Baldur's Gate, and you have a save file that's at a certain point in time, but you can start a new campaign, and then when you reach that same point, you might have different variables. Things are different because you made different choices. So something along those lines. And also just random luck. Maybe in that universe, your daughter really did hit her head on the oven and require extensive surgery and all that. So I think it was real. Again, real, not necessarily that it happened at the same time, but the memories, the information of it was real. Now time for the joke of the day. I was told to describe myself in one word in a job interview. I said, bad at following simple instructions. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.